Now, let's move to the next subtopic, which is the recording. So the next subtopic, which is barriers to communication. Barriers to communication. Now, professors, when we talk of barriers to communication, I want to believe you have an understanding of it. A barrier is more or less like a blockade or an obstacle. So barriers to communication, that will mean that all the obstacles, okay, that hinder the transfer, the smooth and effective transfer of information from one person to the other, right? Then we'll consider that as a barrier to communication. Now, why are we discussing this? We need to discuss this because in organizations, there are lots of obstacles or blockades that hinder effective communication. And so we need to know how to these barriers. Okay. But in overcoming these barriers, then you would need to know the specific obstacles that may hinder or retard the effective transfer of information in organizations. So barriers to communication, I think you have just established that these are the obstacles, okay, or the things that disrupt the smooth flow of message from one person to the other. That is a barrier to communication. So let me ask, professors, have you ever encountered a case where you are communicating with someone, but you don't seem to get what the person is saying? Can you share an experience? Yes, who would go first here? Is it Charles or Delade? Has there been a time where you were trying to share information with someone, but it wasn't effective or it wasn't successful? We want to know what happened and what caused the failure of the communication. So, Prof. Charles, if you can start this one for us. Unless, of course, you have never communicated with anybody before where you've had a challenge of not effectively getting the message. Prof. Charles, we didn't hear that. Can you take the point again?
One time, a friend was supposed to come for something from me, but then he didn't know who that was. So immediately he came, he started speaking Ewe. I didn't understand the Ewe he was speaking.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that submission. So the point about the person using a language that you are not familiar with. Thank you. Prof. Delade, what was your story?
So I think I'll use this message.
Did you say you were going to say what Charles said? I think I didn't hear you clearly.
No, please. I used yesterday. Okay.
Okay.
Sir, please, I'll use yesterday for an example. So
Okay.
I wanted my mom to get me some stuff, but then it was the wrong timing of the week.
Okay. 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 So that is true. So based on what you have said, it means that one of the obstacles to effective communication could be the language, right? That's in the case of Prof. Charles, and in the case of Prof. Bella, the timing, the timing. Okay, so let's put things down. So barriers to communication refers to obstacles or things that disrupts the smooth flow of messages and effective communication. So let's look at some of these barriers. So one of them is language, right? But we would term that as semantic barrier to communication. When we talk of the semantic barriers, we are referring to using words that um, you know, words or phrases that people don't really understand. They don't, in fact, they don't know what it means. Okay, and then this could be due to different cultural or social background. Okay, so like Prof. Charles said, the person is an Ewe, and he started speaking Ewe, right? So if you are not in the same cultural or ethnic group with this person, it will be difficult, unless, of course, you are fortunate to have learned that particular language. Okay, so the semantic barriers has to do with the difference in the meaning of the word. So when an Ewe says a particular word, you may misinterpret it because you are not an Ewe, or you don't know or understand Ewe. So that's then the second one, as Prof. Deladem indicated, wrong timing. Wrong timing. So if you don't choose the right time to communicate, your message would be disrupted. So imagine you want somebody to buy you porridge, and that should be in the morning because, as we know, porridge is mostly sold in the mornings. But if you don't do that communication at that time and you do it probably late in the afternoon, I'm not sure you would have what you want. Now, there are also other barriers, okay, like poor handwriting. There are some people, when they write, you can't see clearly, right? So poor handwriting, if the person was using, um, the written form of communication, or sometimes the noise. Okay, you hear people um, talking at the background, especially if you're on phone with lots of noise here and there. You would not be hearing well what the person is saying. Okay. Even poor eyesight. Imagine if the person is using a sign language and then your vision is not good, you cannot get what the person is trying to communicate to you well. So we'll caption all these under physical barriers, and it includes handwriting, voice. Somebody's voice can be an obstacle to communication. There are some people, they say, this is how I speak. They cannot speak up, okay, or they cannot speak up. So eyesight. So I need to qualify these things. Poor handwriting, poor handwriting, a bad voice, right? And of course, poor eyesight, etc. So all these, let me add noise at the background. Or even what we have been experiencing on Omega, poor network, poor internet. It's a hindrance, it's a barrier to communication. Some students are not able to join the class because of poor network. Okay. And the next one is use of wrong medium. Use of wrong medium. I think we discussed the medium of communication, but we discussed them under broad categories. And when we talk of medium of communication, we are looking at the means through which you transfer your message. So if you don't choose the right medium, or if the medium is not appropriate, so where you have to use an oral medium, you go and use written. Okay, that'll be problematic. Imagine the headmaster coming to assembly to instead of speak to the student, he rather lifts a sheet of paper and expects student to read. You see, at that point, the headmaster is using the wrong medium of communication. So it can be a problem if the means of transferring the information is bad or wrong. And there are some people too who use these big words or what we call jargons. Okay, so jargons are also another barrier. They use big words that are difficult to understand, or special or technical words. Imagine if you go to the hospital and then the doctor says you have acute bronchiolitis. I'm sure you begin to ponder what is the meaning of this, because the word being used there is so technical, okay, that you cannot understand. Okay, the next one is bureaucracy, or what we call long organizational structure, or bureaucracy. This thing can also be a hindrance to communication. Imagine even in your school, if you want to pass on an information to your headmaster as an ordinary student, if it is at the house level, you have to go through your dorm prefect, to your house prefect, to your house master, before it gets to the senior house master, to the assistant head domestics, before the headmaster. You can imagine what would have happened to your message. So bureaucracy or the long organizational structure is also a problem or a hindrance to communication. Now, how do we overcome these barriers? So, how to overcome barriers to communication? So, ways to overcome barriers to communication. Okay, so here I think you can use the obstacle and just edit it to sound as a way to overcoming the barrier. So of course, the first one will be avoid the use of jargons. Okay, avoid the use of jargons or big words that are difficult to explain. So I'm sure you can give me further points based on what I've said. So communicate at the right time. So that has to do with the wrong time. Make sure you communicate at the right time. That will help you to achieve the purpose of your communication. Again, avoid emotional influences. Now, of course, one of the barriers to communication is emotional influence or the emotional state of the sender or the receiver. Okay. So if you are sending a message to somebody who is sad or who is extremely happy, there's a possibility that their emotions may impact the communication. Because the person is so sad crying, the person might not be paying attention to what you are saying. Or because the person is extremely happy, he might miss some of the things you are saying. Okay, so avoid emotional influences. Okay, or better still, we can say avoid adding your feelings during communications or communication. Okay. Next one, so we can talk about the person using the right language. Okay. That is the semantic. Then in terms of the bureaucracy, right? One way to avoid is making your message specific to the person. So for example, the scenario I gave about you going through your dorm prefect, etc. Then you could just write a simple letter addressing the headmaster. That one will be more direct than if you want to go through the specific structures as established in the organization regarding how a student should report an issue that happened in the house to the headmaster. Okay, so we can say make your message specific and address to a specific receiver. That way you would avoid the problem of bureaucracy. Okay, so these are ways that you can. In fact, there are other obstacles like selective listening, where people decide to listen to what they are interested in. Okay, so one way of overcoming this is paying attention or carefully listening to every detail of a message that is being given. Okay. I have a question in the chat. Okay, let me see what is in the chat from Delade. So please, Adam has asked you a question on the class page. Okay, so let me check. Okay. So I've answered Thank you, Delade, for the prompt. Okay, so professors, these are the ways you can avoid the obstacles or the barriers to communication. Now, let's see if we can quickly discuss some of the things that determine the choice of communication medium. As a matter of fact, you all appreciate that if you choose the wrong medium, okay, of communication, it will be a problem, right? So if one way to avoid barriers to communication is using the right medium of communication, then let's look at some of the factors you will have to consider in choosing a medium to communicate. So for example, Deladen, you want to pass on an information to your friend in the United States, right? You need to choose the right medium to get this information to the person. Hence, you will need to consider certain factors to be able to select the best. Now, there are various ways you can reach out to this person in Canada, either via post or via, now we have WhatsApp call or Zoom, or you can also decide to travel. Okay, you can decide to travel to the place. Okay, so how would you, or let me put the question this way. So Adam and Cyril, you are welcome. So Deladem, you have a friend in the United States of America, and you want to tell your friend that probably your birthday is next month. How would you communicate this to that your friend, and what means would you use to do the communication? Let me hear that.
So please, I'll probably contact the person or through electronic mail.
Okay, so you would use the email. Now, what informed your choice? Why did you go for email? Because of course you could have done a WhatsApp call. So why are you choosing email?
Sir, please.
Sorry, there
I
are
think the messages are even stored. I think the messages are stored in the absence of the receiver. So like the receiver can come back to check.
Okay. So you considered a medium that will have a permanent record, because of course if you send an email to the person, unless the person deletes it, it will be there forever and ever. So you were looking at how durable, okay, that medium can keep your message. Okay, so thank you for that. Was that the only reason, or there were other reasons why you chose email over? Well, let me go to another professor. So, Professor Adam, if you wanted to tell your friend who is in the United States about your birthday celebration, how would you do it? What means would you get this information to the person? Okay, Prof. Adam, well, can I hear from Cyril? Same question if you wanted to share an information to your friend in the US.
Yeah, I'll call him.
Okay, so you will use the call, the telephone call, or maybe WhatsApp call. Why call and not email, or maybe you getting a visa and going there to visit and telling him about your celebration? Why?
So maybe the email, unless he goes to like his this thing before he sees it, but you doing the call, you're telling him personally, so he'll be aware of it.
Okay. Okay. So, professors, what I want you to acknowledge is that before you choose a medium of communication, you would have to consider certain factors, right? Because these factors will then help you to decide whether to do email or to do a call or to write a letter or even go there in person. So these are the factors that we want to look at. But I guess we'll have to do that in the third session. So, professors, let's meet um, in the third session, okay, to continue. And I think that each and every one of you will have to think about the factors that will induce you to either choose this medium over that medium. So let's do that in the third and final session. See you.